First off, thanks to Webwise for having me. Thanks to Zeminar as well, because personally I think this is such an incredible event because it's not about talking down to anybody. It's not about condescending anybody. It's about allowing you guys to have a conversation with each other and also with us. There was a conversation I had this morning about what we're going to talk about as well today, which was a little bit awkward. I was like, left home, went to my local Spar to get a coffee. My mum called me, and she was like, hey, how's it going? She does it every morning. I'm like, oh yeah, it's all good, yeah. And she was like, what are you doing today? I was like, oh, I'm doing a talk. And she was like, what about? And I was like, nudes. She was like, what? I was like, nudes. She was like, Stephen, I can't hear. I was like, nudes! Everybody in Spire was like, what the hell is going on over here? For our panel discussion, I would like to introduce, and please give them a massive round of applause, Rachel, who is a UCD graduate and editor of the College Tribune. That's Rachel O'Neill. And Megan Nolan, who's a writer and columnist with the Sunday Times Style magazine. Obviously, we talked about consent there. It's about just the knowledge of knowing, I guess, when you do send something, what the possibility of that is. But there are laws around this and laws in terms of the age for sexting as well. So could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess I was only made aware recently enough that it is illegal for anyone to send images like that if you're under 18. So I think that's something that I didn't even know the ins and outs of that. It's important for everyone to know that because I feel like if your images are shared without your consent, then that's a really important weapon to have, that you can literally say that's illegal. It's not just that I don't like it, it's that it's illegal and I can go to the police about it.
People don't realise that possession of, if someone sends you a nude and they're under 18, that's actually a pornographic image. Like, a lot of people don't seem to realise that that's child pornography, which is quite important. Like, you can be arrested and charged for that and spend up to 3 years in prison, and then you're automatically put onto a sex registry.
I had a situation when I was like 17 where something was sent and then it was shared around a couple of people, and I got rid of the evidence of all of it. But it was literally the most frightening thing I've ever felt in my life, because at the time I started in RT working when I was 17 years of age, and this was about 6 months after that. So in my eyes, I was like, my whole life's over. Everything's like it's because it's there forever. Everything's done, and I guess I learned a lesson from that at that age. I haven't told nobody that before, so good for you. You get some extra knowledge.
It can be not malicious. It ends up being a very negative, sometimes really life-destroying thing to do to someone else. I think it's important that people know that it's not just a joke.
Yeah, it's definitely a knock-on effect in so many different ways that you can't really understand until it actually happens as well. In terms of influence then, where do you think is there a media influence here, or do you think even the influence of peers as well, pressure to do it because maybe you know that everyone else is?
I mean, there's definitely an inherent pressure, particularly if you're female, and kind of growing up in school, and when I was growing up, it was almost expected of you that you would send this thing to somebody if you like them or not. And I think it kind of comes down to media influence, because if you've got such an over-sexualization of girls from such a young age, like you're looking at, like if you look at the celebrity culture and all that kind of thing, like girls are so over-sexualized the whole time. And that obviously plays into the culture then, because people see that, they're like, oh, well, maybe she will send me a nude if I ask her to, and that kind of thing. And obviously this happens, as you said, to both genders, but I think particularly for girls and for women, it is, like the media it plays such a horrible role in that. Like, you over-sexualize them, it's almost like, well, what do you expect? You're supposed to do this for me. It's like, it's an expected kind of coercion, I suppose, nearly.
As the campaign says, lasts forever potentially, and is completely out of your control once it's out of your hands. You know, once you've sent it, you might trust the person in that moment, but it's a really huge decision to make to do that if you're under 18.
I don't want my mother to see. That's my rule for everything. And she's got a strong mind, but still, I'm very, very careful about everything I put through there.
No one should be ever pressured into doing anything they do not feel comfortable with, and I mean that for all kinds of sexual behaviours, but you should not be pressured into doing anything you don't want to. So if someone is pressuring you, I mean, it's very hard to say no, and obviously, like Megan said, we're not trying to shame anyone for having sexual feelings, it's very natural, but don't let anyone pressure you into something that you're not comfortable doing.
In a situation where something like this does happen and an image is being passed around, what would you say to the bystander who is, maybe seeing this happen? And
I guess just that it's like a difficult time in everyone's life, but you have to try and have some empathy and think about what you would feel like, even if it's someone you disliked, if you try and think about what you would feel like if that was your picture being shared, it is something that causes a lot of shame in people, and that makes it hard to talk about. And it's very understandable if this happened to you and someone was sharing your pictures without your consent. You wouldn't feel comfortable necessarily telling an adult, but you should try and tell somebody, because it really will eat you up otherwise if you're trying to deal with something like this alone. And you might be able to ask someone you trust to talk to the person involved on your behalf. So just don't try and deal with it all alone, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Can everybody give them a massive round of applause, please? Cheers.
Thanks.
Rachel O'Neill and Megan Nolan.